For all the problems and scandals that we've seen with the Trump administration, the robust economy, it is the one thing the Trump supporters keep coming back to. And for many of them, it's justification enough to be on Team Trump and to look the other way on all the stuff we talked about last segment. But we are starting to see some chinks in the economic armor. New job numbers show the unemployment rate falling to 3.5%, which is a very, very good number. But job growth itself, that is slowing down. And this chart tells the story. The economy added about 135,000 jobs last month, but the trend, it is going downward. Some sectors like manufacturing and agriculture, they're in all-out tailspin. Now you can thank the president's trade war in large part for that. Let's bring on our guest, Rick Unger. He joins me now. He hosts the nationally syndicated radio show, The Rick Unger Show. And Rick, like we said, you look at unemployment, it's terrific news. But when you dive a little deeper, and we'll go into what some of the forecasters are saying, but let's do it industry by industry. In the beginning, so we had the ag secretary meet with farmers, and he basically, I think he was trying to give them tough love, but he sent them a pretty dire message. He said, in no small part here, in America, the big get bigger and the small go out. He said this in Madison, Wisconsin. I don't think in America we, for any small business, have a guaranteed income or a guaranteed profitability. There was one of the farmers that was there who walked out and basically said, I feel like my country doesn't have my back right now. I feel that there's no place for me. Can I get some support from my state and federal government? I feel like we're a benefit to society. This is one of those purple states here in Wisconsin, and they're not alone right now. People are starting to say after 3 years, you know, where's the beef or where's the money? And they're being told, you know, sorry, no place for you.
Yeah, it was a very strange comment that the Secretary of Agriculture made. Maybe it was honest, but I'll tell you what, all of those small farmers out there in those critical states that really gave Donald Trump his victory in 2016, they have to be listening to that and going, you know, what am I, chopped liver? It was a remarkable thing to say. In the meantime, the agriculture sector is also in recession. You and I both know why. It is absolutely the result of the trade war. I really would wonder if the president had that message in mind when he sent Mr. Perdue out there to talk to these people.
I want to get to manufacturing because we all remember both on the campaign trail and then soon after, there was a lot of optics to say, oh, all these businesses that are shuttering, we're going to open up the doors. In fact, you're going to even have to build on more space here. You're going to expand. You're going to be making so many products. We're going to be winning, winning, winning. There's a lot of indicators right now, but translate when you got the manufacturers purchasing managers index, and they're saying we're down to 47.8. That's the lowest number going all the way back to 2009, and we remember where we were as a country then. Not just as bad in 10 years, but usually it's an indicator that anything under 50% is a contraction. We seem to be heading in the wrong way. And for these folks, they point directly, once again, Rick, to contraction on the manufacturing side. People are starting, I think, to fairly say, wait a minute, you told me one thing, now we're seeing a totally other thing. And again, they're in the Rust Belt, which is going to matter next year.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Rich. Again, this manufacturing sector, we talked about the agriculture sector. The manufacturing sector is also officially in recession. As to the promises that the president made coming in, I guess we did apparently get tired of winning, because if you look to the manufacturing sector for your employment or for much of anything else, it's not very good news, and there's very little sign that this is going to turn around so long as we find ourselves engulfed in these trade wars. This is a major problem. Now, look, I mean, it does not mean that recession is necessarily around the corner for the entire country, but this is absolutely problematic and certainly not what the president promised.
I'm curious, in your program, Rick, and you got a national audience, coal, you go to Kentucky and places like that, where specifically the president targeted that industry and said, forget all those bleeding hearts, forget all the Obama stuff here, coal, baby, we're going to open up the plants, all you guys get your hard hats, you're going back to work. It hasn't happened, period. Do they feel misled? Do they feel abandoned? Do they feel hustled? Or do they still not blame the guy they voted for 3 years ago?
Well, we'll find out, assuming that President Trump is still the nominee of his party. When we get to 2020, we'll find out. Look, anybody who understands the realities of the energy sector knew that coal is very much on the way out. The president made the promises he made to get the votes where he needed to get them. It comes as no shock to anybody that coal continues to decline, as it should be. It's called progress. Natural gas took its place. Other things are taking its place. So it remains to be seen if these people stick with the president or not. I think you'll probably see some fall off, particularly among those who lost their jobs in the coal industry. But you really can't answer that question until you get to the election.
And that perversity, and the best case I can think of is Amazon. So president doesn't like the coverage that he's getting in the Washington Post, so he threatens to do a whole bunch of things, but basically stop the presses at the Washington Post and also go after Bezos, more specifically at Amazon. But the funny part is, if anything, you look at Amazon and Bezos' tax bill, they paid $0 in federal taxes last year. I mean, there's a perversity. I've always said to folks, listen, the one lesson you can learn as a future president, if you don't care about the future of the country, is cut taxes to the bone and raise spending. Don't even pretend to be a fiscal conservative. That way, it's really not too hard to gin up the economy. Sure, we'll have deficits and debts till the cows come home. But even the same people he wants to smack on the wrist, he's rewarding.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of bizarre. It is absolutely true that Amazon did not pay taxes because they are still working off the losses that they had for so many years. If the president was this offended by that, and I could understand where he and everybody else ought to be, he had this really interesting opportunity where he could have changed that scenario. It's called the Tax Act he jammed through back in 2017. He never brought it up, so apparently he wasn't that concerned about Amazon and other companies who are in a similar situation. He had his chance. He chose not to do anything about it. I guess he thought it would be bad press in terms of him being this great tax cutter. But you're absolutely right. My favorite, though, I have to always point it out, when the president kept telling anybody who would listen to him, would you please go and fix that special deal that Amazon has for postage? They didn't have a special deal, so nobody could follow his orders. It was actually pretty entertaining, I understand.
So don't let facts get in the way of a good story. A couple political questions. Elizabeth Warren, we just showed the fundraising numbers. The poll numbers are terrific. But the question is the feasibility of her plans. Are Democrats right to be worried, at least on the Hill, to say, once you start saying what these things are going to cost and how we're going to have to pay for them, all of a sudden politically that becomes really unpopular? Or do you believe this is just a primary hedge and she'll come back in the general, if she is the nominee, back to the middle, or is she just playing right into Trump's hands?
Well, traditionally speaking, if she were to get the nomination, she would need to try and come back to the middle. That's always been the way until this last election, where Trump was able to win, staying wherever the heck it is that he stays. I don't know. You know, you look at Elizabeth Warren's plans, I tend to pencil them all out. I will give her this credit. It's a bit more realistic than what I would always see when I would pencil out Bernie's plans. Those were almost impossible to see how they could be done. Yeah, I think the best thing that Warren could do for herself right now is get a little deeper on the Medicare for All. I think that is going to be the pivotal issue, setting aside the Trump factor in the election. The problem that I keep seeing is nobody wants to talk about, we all understand that instead of paying premiums, if we go to a Medicare for All, we'll be paying, instead of premiums, we'll be paying higher taxes. That could be perfectly fine. The problem is nobody wants to tell us what that's going to mean to me as an individual and to you as an individual. I don't think they have the data. I don't think they know. So they talk in these very broad numbers, which anybody who's paying attention really isn't buying. We need the specifics. If they're not going to give us the specifics, and I don't think they are, I would advise Elizabeth Warren to kind of back off on this having to get rid of private insurance. The way people are going to look at this, they're going to say, all right, I'm going to wait and see how this public thing works. In the meantime, I'm going to stick with what I've got. If my friends and neighbors move over to the public option and it's working for them and they're finding out it's costing them the same or less and they're getting good insurance, then I'll go there too. But if Warren and Sanders are not prepared to tell the American user of health care what it's actually going to cost them, then they better leave that private option open.
Last thing, and it's where I started, which is the economy has been the reason some folks will hold their nose and still stand by the president. Others are with him no matter what. I saw a recent number that 53% of American CFOs believe there'll be a recession by the 2020 election. Ray Dalio, who I respect at least, he's got it pegged at about 40%. But there's a decent to average chance that we're going to see problems. God forbid it happens. Who are they going to blame? The rational point is you blame the president, but we're not in a rational age. Do you believe, because I know the president will blame everyone else but himself for this, will he be saddled with that reality if the market goes really south and if we are in a recession by November of next year?
Yeah, I think he will. But I got to tell you, I don't think recession is the word we should be looking at. I think right now it's very clear that the economy is slowing, but there is one number that you have to look at to really get to a conclusion. Right now, consumer sentiment remains pretty darn strong. As long as that number is high, as long as consumers are confident they're going to be out there spending money, and you and I both know that this is a consumer-driven economy. You can have a recession in manufacturing, you can have a recession in agriculture, you can look at the automotive numbers, which are falling off pretty badly. As long as the consumer is willing to go out there and spend, we're not going to go into a recession. So I think that actually my own judgment is we probably won't get to recession by the election. We will see a slowing economy. And yes, I do think that the president would take the heat in either situation.
Hey, Rick, you enjoy your weekend. As always, my friend, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, when we come back here, we're going to shift some gears and talk a little sports. We're going to head out live to Yankee Stadium. They start their playoff run tonight. After the break, we'll go out to the Bronx for a preview of Game 1 of the ALDS between the Yanks and the Twins. Stay with us.